Okay, the light's on, the numbers are scrolling. Hello, I'm Verdi Busto, and this is the Schumann Resonance Harmonics channel on YouTube and Facebook. Thank you for being here. I've already done the introduction to this, so I'm just going to get into the material. It's a rather long introduction. There's, like a lot of my stuff, two parts to it. And I'm pretty much convinced I'm going to do both of these as a live stream. And I think at the beginning, usually I do music. I think at the beginning, what I'm going to do is do a observations reading, and then when I get some people in the chat, I'll run the videos with I think an introductory song from Alex. All right. Anyway, it's on the board. We'll have to see how I feel after making this. That's always the thing, get the first thing finished and see how you feel about that, and then all right, we'll move on from there. All right. So, with that said, thank you all for being here. If you're new, I appreciate you showing up. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, early and often. And it's important to share this because this channel isn't monetized. I'm not planning on monetizing. So, I depend on you guys to support me in some way or another. There's Patreon, PayPal, uh, and also the crowdfund project that I'm doing. And you kind of vote with your dollars as well. You vote with your likes, your likes. You vote with, doing a lot of different stuff. How can one person make a difference? Well, you support the channel that you like in a number of different ways, and it helps me to believe, which I have trouble believing, that people want to know the technical side and not the other side. So, it helps me, you guys' support helps me in all of this ways, helps me to believe that I'm me, one person. What can one person do? I don't know. I'm just one person, right? You're only one person, put in the kitty. Just if you would, please. I'd appreciate it. But tell your friends. They, let everyone know. Um, and I don't, because this channel isn't monetized, I don't get promoted. It's only through people like Wages that, and other people who, send me out a shout that, I'm able to kind of keep doing this. All right. So, uh, with that said, while you're here, don't forget to thumbs up this video, please. I appreciate that. All right. So, again, I did a long ass introduction to this. What I would just basically call this is like a mission statement in some way. I don't know a better. It's an essay. I always refer to a lot of my writings as essays in any way because that's what they are. Spelled ESSAY, just in case you're not familiar with that term. Um, I learned that in high school what an essay was. And so I think all right, so there's going to be a small introduction. Part of the issue here with all of life in general, but with the Schumann resonances is piecing together the belief half with the science and the knowledge and the objective verification, right? Like because at its heart, science is about objective verification so that another person, if they do that, they will receive the same results. And I, in my own life, get sky above me, when it would otherwise be cloudy because I ask for sun. You can try that yourself. It's scientific. It's very simple. Ask, you get a cloudy overhead day. You can't do it in the middle of rain and expect it to work, like, all right, there's kind of, limitations, but it's part of a belief, okay? So this is just my belief, but, it's scientific in that you yourself can work it. So there's this kind of conjunction or this marriage between the science, true science, objective verification, and a belief of what I know and what I have seen and experienced and what I can make happen, right? You couldn't, like verify yourself, making the clouds part, except for the belief. That's the key to this. And this is the same thing with science, that there's a lot of hocus pocus in science that kind of nullifies and shitifies the process of science, or would seem to, because y'all cut some corners. Y'all got some funky math going. Just y'all got some crazy theory on some wacky shit that's only supportable by your crazy math, right? This is not an objective kind of thing. This is like a mathematical masturbation, right? That's what a lot of some of this stuff I read, the truly scientific shit. It's like y'all are on some crazy whacked out bender of, ether. If you like, just I don't know. That's a humble opinion on that. No better way to put it. Um, so part of it is like where the rubber meets the road. Okay. So that's why I guess, the short, oh my God, 6 minutes, short introduction to the post introduction to this, is that, recently, this had just come up like kind of recently. A month ago, a month before this, a month ago, I had my ducks in order about the belief thing, but it's like, no, it's like I have to figure out a way to integrate it in here somewhere. And, because that's what kind of brings me to this here of what we're talking about is where the belief ends and the objective science starts. All right. The objective verification, the objective validation, in our case here, of the actual established science. As I've said before, as a principle, you can't misappropriate science and what's already established working in working order and what's been studied and misappropriate it and rename it, relabel it, and say, oh, well, yeah, see, it's proving what I'm saying. No, it's not. No, it's not. No. There's a lot of things that are out there that people are saying that the Schumann resonance here is not showing. It's not proving, right? You can, and so that's part of what this process here for me is the distillation between the the good and the not good, the punky, as my dad would refer to wood that had been eaten by termites or whatever. It's spongy, it's punky. And so a lot of the ascension based science that's out there is punky. It's just spongy and or gooey, or it's not founded upon actual science. It's not science, but it's being brought out, paraded as a type of science, a version of metaphysics, which I refer to as the Disney side, the invented by Pixar version of the ascension, based on the Schumann resonance readings, all right, the Schumann readings, right? Other whatever else is going on out there that's relative to ascension and all of that spiritual evolution, right, is a whole nother thing altogether, right? Group meditations, whatever, it doesn't matter. I'm not dealing with that. We don't, this gets into what I'm talking about here, that the Schumann resonances are not of their nature ascension based, meaning whether you know about how technically the science of the Schumann resonances works, if indeed there is an ascension, right, and I'm mute on that, right, but if there is one, you can ascend fine, right, without knowing what the Schumann resonances are doing, okay, because predominantly the ionosphere catches a lot of the solar radiance to us. You got to remember that, all right? So that's important to remember, that even relative to the ascension thing, which we're not even talking about, boom, there's the fact remains that the ionosphere is a membrane that catches a lot of the solar stuff that would otherwise get to us. Okay, so with that said, the Facebook and the YouTube group, 9 minutes. Oh, I'm almost not quite at 10 minutes. All right. So my non-introductory introduction was 10 minutes into it. All right. The read for this is only supposed to be 10 minutes long. Yeah. No, that's not. my 10-minute read of my post is not going to be 10 minutes. I'm fairly sure. Were that it were. All right, so this is a good pausing point, I guess, before I start going into it. I'm going to have a cup of coffee. Why don't you do the same? I don't think I stopped at 5 minutes, but the 10-minute mark, my traditional, starting of the content. All right, so that way, have a coffee. I'm going to. Let's meet back here in a few minutes. Okay. All right. So I will say the intro ends at officially 10:26. Content begins at 10:26. All right. So thank you for being here. Um, the YouTube and channel and the Facebook were intended to kind of go together to support each other. Just seemed the thing to do. The Facebook, I think, group was a little bit before the YouTube channel when I transitioned it over chronologically, for those of you who are interested. But the two were intended to go together, because I wanted to have a place to store video and maybe not necessarily video, but pictures. And I wanted to have that it was my first intended idea was to have a place I could send links to people to, for information. Turns out you can't really do that in a private group. Like, all right, so I didn't know that. But then I did the WordPress for a shareable link and all of that. Eventually, but the YouTube channel was intended to go with the Facebook group. So as such, they have the exact similar philosophy, a mission statement as you were. Uh, and it is the technical and scientific evaluation of Schumann resonances, based on, and I didn't put this here, but based on accepted engineering techniques and the standard technical readings of the graphs, as I am familiar with in my 30 plus years experience with radio and TV and broadcast and AM, FM, video, audio, computer repair, all of that. The standard, how it's currently working. Um, so, inversely or conversely, my channels and groups, my personal mission here is not one given to presenting the Schumann as a religion or a cult of spirituality. And in fact, phrase even the Schumann is a cult-like ideology. The like in all ideologies, somewhere is a few words holding it together, right? We think in words. Humans, with society, you have to have word forms in your head somewhere. You know, we are inherently mind readers. We can read people's minds in a sense, but there is a certain logic that comes with words that you have to understand that isn't really easily conveyable from intuition, right? You have to kind of have a physical sense of the words. And so that's part of what this phrase, the ideology of the Schumannism, as I call it, is based on the spectrogram as the itself as the representative image that's given, which changes over time, because that image, it's a I would say an evolving icon of the religion of the Schumann, uh, and the phrase cult of spirituality, meaning there's these cult has a sort of brainwashing involved. There's a jargon, there's a lexicon. Uh, Electricians' unions are a cult, but there's a whole lot of math involved in it. Plumbers' unions are a cult of sort, jargon, but there's training, there's, technical training. It's not really a cult so much. However, like I can make the point of that, you know, cults generally the brainwashing involves lack of facts. There's not science that's allowed in it. So you can't reasonably make the case that plumbers are a cult, right? And in fact, the root word of cult is culture, as I understand it. It might be a good thing to look up. But what exactly is a cult in this? Yeah, oh yeah, I'm a spiritual person, but you got to do it this way, you're not going to, and we're ascending, and it's dogma. Cult part is the dogma that comes with it, that is the little kernel, perhaps, of the idea is wrapped up in this husk of tripe, which is stomach lining of a fish, basically. Is tripe is edible. However, the expression tripe is one that's like like the word slush. Like kind of applies. Um, so part of it is defining the words here. What do you mean by this, right? So standardization. It's part of what one of the benefits of science is the standardization of your definition. What are we talking about so we all understand the phrase? This is first and foremost in science. Defining your words, defining your phrase. So like in all of these abstracts that I read you, there's a keywords. What are what the vocabulary that we need to know special to this? And in some cases, there's many researches that have a certain specific set of terms that you need to know because it's specific to what that research is. And so herein as well, in the Schumann resonances, there is a whole other side of the the coin, the other side of the story that's not out there in the public for free, the free domain, that is talking technically about what the Schumann resonances really are and how they're measured and why there's these bands, right? Everyone focuses on the Schumann resonance as this one here, right? This one, 7.8, and it's outside of the successive conversation of what the rest of it is, and the true understanding of what these amplitude spikes are, because the amplitude spikes are not the Schumann resonance. It's just the amplitude spikes are not the Schumann resonance. They're measured, yes. But this is one of those things, one of these hard to swallow for people to swallow thing that the Schumann resonances here are these bands, right? The horizontal bands. That's what they are. Now, we look at the cause of them, their bands, and then that becomes a different, part of the process, a different part of the tale. Right? It is not all energy because there are geometries that work well together and some geometries that don't work well together. It's part of this discussion as well of understanding how the Schumann resonances work and how the atmospheric electromagnetics work. Bling. Because there's both that exist there. The Schumann resonances are a form of atmospheric electromagnetics. Yes, they are. And then there are other form of atmospheric electromagnetics. Spherics, sprites, elves, other, your cell phone, your unshielded electronics are part of atmospheric electronics. The HP laptop I'm on is also part of atmospheric electromagnetics. So, by my agreement and contract with whatever, my group, the the chief resonances whom I work with, they I am the emissary for. They, as part of what this gig is to distinguish the difference between the Schumann, what is the effect on the Schumann resonances, and what is also happening with the atmospheric electromagnetics that in some cases, in many cases, are thousands of times stronger than the Schumann resonances, right? Your biological field itself is stronger than the Schumann resonances. That's something people don't quite understand as well. All right. So, onward and upward. Okay. This group, the channel, the group, were not created as a discussion platform for 5D or ascension energies. It is for a couple reasons. One, because it's the technical and the engineering side of it, and there's nothing inherently, in my view, my humble view, there's nothing inherently based in ascension and the technical aspects of that. From what I understand, again, we need to standardize our definition of what's what. But from what I've gathered, there's not a book that I've seen. There's a Wikipedia thing that's like, all right, it's a guide, but like, all right, this is all kind of punky ground, as it were. It's not discussed inherently as a platform for ascension or 5D, whatever that means. There's a lot of my view of what 5D means is not. There isn't anyone that's got the same view of 5D. We all get it all. However, at 13, I knew what the dimensions and the densities were. I'm 52 now. So this is not a platform for the 5D for ascension because there is not a standard ability of any of that. And my place in this is as the technical consultant for how, to read the graphs and stuff. Nothing in the Schumann resonances is inherently ascension-based. Therefore, an ascension-based narrative is not one that's supported here, me in the channel, the comments. I work my best to be considerate, right? And just because, assuming that we're all here, regardless of what anyone's belief is, that we're all here to learn technically about the Schumann resonances. All right, so, but this is part of what my gig here is to explain that regardless of what anyone else tells you anywhere else, right? You can ascend just fine if you're on that path without knowing either how the Schumann resonances technically work or what it's doing. Okay? All right? So I come at it from that perspective that regardless of whatever my channel is doing, right, whatever in actuality they're doing, if you're going to ascend, you're going to ascend. If you're on that path, if you know what truly, from what I understand, the ascension pathway is, all right, relative to humans on Earth, in the Earth school, from what I understand of that, regardless of whatever the Schumann's doing, you'll do fine. If you live a good life, you clear out all the toxins, clear out all the density, your lowest densities, clear out the toxic people, the toxic relationships from your life, clean out your life, donate things that you haven't used in a year. It's a good thing to, if you have stuff you've had for over a year and you haven't used it, or it's like you have stuff that's sentimental values. It might be of family members they've passed on. Like that's different. That's different. But your own personal stuff, if you've accumulated stuff, you haven't used it in a year, get rid of it. Have a yard sale, right? Or just donate it. Just donate it, right? So these are things, regardless of whatever, they're on the ground floor level things that you can do and should do, and that I have been saying of grounding yourself, various things of grounding yourself into the Earth's energy. It's really important that whatever metaphysical or philosophical or higher order function you think is going on, it doesn't matter if energy is all crazy because you don't know how to ground, or you can't make time for it in your busy life, or some other excuse, or whatever, right? No, you have to remember this. The spiritual path is, among all things, discipline. So, if you can't discipline yourself to a couple 15 minutes a day of clearing out your lowest densities, clearing out the people who've invaded your life and are tapped into your energies, and you wonder why you're so drained, oh, it must be the Schumann. No. Who do you work with? What parasites in two-legged form do you work with that you've allowed to tap into your energy? And they're draining you like free, like a tick or a leech that have sucked into you, that you're allowing them to pull your energy from you. That's part of what this is. That's why, part of why we are not the ascension based, because it is at the ground floor level, at the you being the center of the universe, need to look at all of your immediate universe first, the closest things to you, which is not, unless you're living in Tomsk, Russia, the closest electromagnetic interferences in your life, which is what the Schumann represents, a series of electromagnetic interferences, electromagnetic resonances in your life. So, unless you live in Siberia, I'm certain you have much stronger electromagnetical influences in your life that you need to deal with. That is why, in large part, regardless of whatever the Schumann's doing in Russia, you in your life have a lot of local interferences that you are not dealing with by blaming it on the Schumann, which is in Russia. Again, we are the Siberians. You're looking at the Siberians, but their view is, which is fine. And you have to remember, I explain to people, it's put together by a university, a technical university, which is a wonderful, fine place. Don't malign them if you don't know how to read the Schumann, please, or the spectrogram. They haven't done anything. They're not doing anything. I send them much love and respect. They're fine, wonderful people. I don't ever let anyone malign. I'm serious. I have a straight up, just dead line on that. I don't let anyone ever malign the Tomsk SOS Russian people within my purview. I'm straight up dead set on that. If within my purview, if I'm on a moderator on someone's channel or my own channel, and I hear people talking about them, oh, they're hiding data, I'm either hiding you from the channel or I'm blocking you, just permanently blocking you. I don't have any of that within my no. They're not hiding anything. They're not falsifying any data, which is part of the reason why it's important to know the malevolence within, the dark underbelly within the ascension, the natural fuckery that comes with, the dark underbelly that comes with the ascension side version of the reading of the Schumann resonances. I don't give a who's a madiggy, whatever, outside of what I can see, right? I'm not everywhere. Right? I'm not going after people. I'm not looking. I'm not hunting, right? I have enough of my own stuff I do between the Facebook group and this and the other, just posting my stuff that I don't need to go looking for anything else. But I've already done a survey. I've already seen enough. People send me links. I know the lay of the land here. Right? The Schumann resonances is all I've been doing for the last year plus, which is a whole lot, probably more reading and research than most of you have, or you'd want, or you have the time. If you have the time, you may or may not do as much reading, but I have the time, the dedication, and I have the background, and so I already have that's one of the things I have going in my favor, is that I already have the background of having years of study and research going into this. It's I've already way more paid the dues on this than anyone else. You know, now that it's go time, now that it's crunch time, no, you don't have time. Now that everything's falling down around you, you don't have time to start researching and learning about all of this very complicated stuff. It's extremely complicated. I'm not going to lie. That's why people are drawn to the Ascension version of it, because it's the easier, softer road. You know, it doesn't involve math or science or standards or principles. Doesn't involve any of that. Doesn't involve objective verification, except, oh, it's what I say. Right? Oh, you're smart. You know a lot. Wow. Yeah. Well, yeah. He just knows more than you, and That's not really worth much. You're. There's no dumb questions, only dumb answers. Your ignorance of the subject personally helps me because you don't have to unlearn something. So, the fact that you coming into this as a newcomer know nothing is beautiful. Just at 31:15 or 31:13, know that you coming into this completely ignorant, don't apologize, please. Please. It's a beautiful, wonderful thing if you've come here only hearing a little bit. You haven't been corrupted, in my humble view. Just let me say that. It's, well, kind of like having a virgin, if you will. You know, it's not that I would know, but from what I gather, what I understand, it would be the same type of a thing. Someone who's not been corrupted or defiled, if you will, in my humble view, a false narrative. You know, uh, corrupted by a false narrative. Uh, and so uh, with that, you know, it's my version and my, like I said, my place in this is not one of providing more. Like, I wouldn't even know the jargon. I don't even know how they, I can't even fathom how they come up with all this ridiculous stuff that they put on the Schumann. You know, like a timeline shift. Like, are you kidding me? I, oh man. Um, uh, I say this, understanding it's potentially all right. So yeah, the thing is, like, I realize that a good chunk of the people who've come either to the Facebook or here to Utah, like, have this kind of idea. And that's why I'm saying this. It's why it's important to say this, because there are so many people who are coming at this from the ascension, you know, the ascension-based viewpoint that uh, it's somehow that the Schumann is connected with ascension. Okay, right? It's out there. It's in the public. It's in the domain, right? Certainly, there's more. I think Homebrewed did one explanation of the Schumann. It's pretty good. Okay, but most people are not. You know, they're telling you from this. They're giving you just the spectro, calling it the Schumann, and giving you just everything from that. So pretty much everyone. I'm not going to say names, and you know, but, you know, except for wages. You know, like, all right, but everyone else, you know, are giving you the Schumann based on the spectro, and that's just inherently, even if you're not ascension based, that's bad science. Say bad technical kind of explanation. And that's kind of what comes with, you know, even if you're not with the ascension crowd and you only base your thing on the spectro, that's bad enough. But if you're one of those ascension based people and you're basing what you say on just the spectro, that's really bad. You know, I give a lot of respect to Mr. MBB, but he doesn't, you know, he doesn't research this like I do. So he has some general kind of things, but he's not saying, you know, 5D blah blah energy or whatever. He's just giving you a general, so I give him a lot of, leeway because he's not, he's more or less technical based, he doesn't have a broad technical knowledge, but whatever, it doesn't matter, you know. But aside from him and maybe one other, even anyone else I can think of, I'm not going to mention any more names, but anyone else on YouTube that I've seen, you know, it, the people that talk about it that aren't, they're just not giving you the dependencies like I do. No one else does, like, pretty much, you know. Uh, so, I come to this with a perspective that you can, if you're on the ascension pathway, you can ascend fine without knowing, technically about how the Schumann resonances work. If you're because you still have clearing and everything to do anyway. But if you do want to know technically how they work, then that without an attachment to the ascension rhetoric, then that's what this is. And again, this is based on my own perspective, working as a technician, fixing electronics in some way or working on them, computer repair, networking, training, all of this, taking them apart, scrapping in some cases, e-waste, whatever. Um, so what I say here is it's better that you know this early. Well, it's been a year, all right, so it's not quite early, but this was intended for the Facebook group that I recently got a big wave of people requesting, admission in there. So like, oh, all right, like, I talked about that in the introduction, but I before I accepted everyone in, even with the somewhat lame answers, you got to give people a chance, right? Got to give them a chance. I'm not judging them based on the factual content of a lame answer, like interested. Someone gives me, why you here? Interested. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. Or knowledge. All right. Love. All right. Maybe okay. All right. Yeah, at least that's a good spirit. All right. We'll see what they post, give them the benefit of the doubt, see if they post something good. All right. So, so it was important to post this and put it as a, uh, um, an announcement to people to give the understanding that, this is not what the rest of all the everything else you've heard about the Schumann resonances. This is kind of the detailed way of saying that everything you've kind of, you know, heard of, may or may not have heard up to the Schumann resonances up to this point is not applicable or supported here. It's really important for you to understand that coming into this, that all of that other version, the narrative of it, not what we're doing here. All right, so if you want to head for the door because it makes you uncomfortable to hear that, like now is the time. All right, but because stick around, it's just gonna get bumpier from here. So as entry into the Facebook group, I asked one simple question: why have you come here? What a person says is as important as how it's answered. That's what my mom told me. It's a principle, and it's a scientific studied principle that that what you say it is a certain part of the message, but how you say it is a bigger part of what's conveyed. And so that's part of what this was. I left it in a general enough way that people could just basically answer with a wide latitude of um, comments, potential answers that I'll accept. Some people, but it was a survey. It was basically a survey. And so it provided me with some knowledge and understanding of what is, what's going on in people's motivation for coming over. Some people lesser percentage of people are coming over to understand technically how the Schumann resonances work. Um, most people seem to be coming, or the bigger part of people seem to be coming from the perspective of they want to link up a spike or an event on the Schumann resonances with some physiological feeling, a symptom, we might call it. So, the biggest responses are, I'm interested, or for knowledge. I think I get a lot of them. Some people, like the next biggest kind of group, are people that want to, find out if the spikes or the peaks or whatever are affecting them physiologically. Okay, it's one of the answers. Um, and so then there are people who, that tell me I follow this every day, and I'm, specifically what their interest is. So it's not just a general interest. They tell me specifically what their interest is, which is, nice to kind of know from people. All right. So so there are people that want to know, follow the daily updates and that. All right. So um what are the Schumann resonances? How are these plotted into the graph form? I can help answer this. Okay. Uh, some folks are here to discuss the rising resonances. I think that's a thing, like to see Earth's, like the association of Earth's vibration rising, and then as a result, the Schumann resonance is rising. So there's this understanding, this perception of the process that is assumed, uh, that they want verified or validated. I think that's the best way to put that. Um, so what I said is, since this is not an actual thing, support of this notion is beyond the scope of the Schumann resonance harmonics. So, in other words, the Schumann resonances are not rising. I don't support this in my videos or what I say. My place in this is to give an exposition of highly technical information. My part in this is clear. Okay. I am personally coming to this from the perspective of 30 plus years experience in radio, audio, video, electronics, computer building, repair, both theory, going to school, going to college, vocational training, practical experience working on people's computers, printer issues, a lot of printer issues. It's been my place to uh, learn how things are built, so I can properly fix them when they break. So I'm a Mr. Fix It. I've always been a Mr. Fix It, even when I was 8. For my mom, fixing either the lawnmower, or 10. I guess I started when I was really fixing stuff for, like the lawnmower, taking out the spark plug. Uh, you know, she would go to the library, give me a book on how to fix stuff. So I've always been interested in how things work, and when they break, how to fix them. Uh, the majority of my time has throughout my life, the majority of my time has been spent reading technical manuals and research, and like fact science technical books, like technical manuals, all that. Um, uh, and so this is where my perspective is. Um, and so one of the things that I deal with in this is the belief coming into this. Belief has an innate power to it. Within one's belief is an inherent power. Some folks' belief is grounded in fact and objective validation, science, like this is just all science, okay? And some folks have beliefs that in things that are totally unsupportable by facts. Like I said, the asking the clouds to clear for the sun, Right? Now, it's a thing you could do, potentially a person could do, if you believe it's possible. However, that's not factually, you couldn't bring that to a lab. You'd have, you, it's not, I don't know how you'd, but I have had people one-on-one I've done that with, right? And with me, they've been able to do that, right? And the power of two, so within 5 or 10 minutes, it's happened. So that's the only way to verify that as a fact, which I'm happy to do with anyone. But like that's the principle of it, that it's hard to, these things that are not factually provable because it's like one-on-one with someone. Uh, I'll say through the quantum belief field. Uh, so, um, so both are, both are fine in their respect. So how do you get the two of them to work together? Uh, Whatever person's belief, the specific belief is not the point. Belief is not the problem. Belief is inherently non-supportable by objective fact. Belief is, in many times, it's an ideology we have in our heads that you can't like objectively prove except through perhaps your own actions showing it, improving it, and somehow, convincing people that your belief is the way or your belief is superior. Um, Belief is not the problem. As far as I'm concerned, any belief is not the problem. Uh, what is the problem is confusing a belief with an objectified, verifiable reality. So something's measurable, something that is objectively repeatable. Okay. So this is at the core of science. Technology would be how it's applied, how something is applied. Uh, there's a lot of confusion over what science and technology is. And I think it's important to kind of have an understanding of this. I'm not going to go into it now, but that there's a distinction between science and technology. And science uses technology. However, there is a construction of materials that is more of an engineering uh, than the observational principles of science, of being just a neutral observer. Um, so these are part of the thing of the observer and the scope, or the observer standing out of the measurement of the scope to allow the sensor to do its job properly without the interference of a human interaction or human consciousness changing the outcome. Uh, so the problem is confusing a an intuitive innate belief with something that's objectifiable, measurable through an external sensor. So someone else, the two of you can see exactly the same result. That's the difference between the two. Uh, um, and I think it's really important to understand that real life scientists, if you've ever heard of them or heard them speak, they talk in terms of probability, or they had traditionally talk in terms of probability, but then they still are, when you sell it, you sell the research, you have to tell them that uh, your results are harmonious with the projected results you were looking to find. All right, that's how you get funding, is you tell them that your results matched up what you expected to find. Right. Um, but it's probability, possibility, and probability. Right. Many folks coming into this with the belief it's imperative to know the Schumann resonances based on the spiritual or an ascension-based reasoning behind learning them. That seemed to be a mouthful. I've talked about that. I've said that. This group's exploration of the Schumann resonances is not the ascension side of the phenomena. for the record in this matter, all right, standardize our definitions. What is ascension? Okay. As I give you a simple kind of snapshot of this, a thumbnail, uh, ascension is the recombining of the connected, disconnected DNA of the human form. So it's basically moving from the two-strand carbon-based life form to the 12-stranded DNA, refined carbon, closer to diamond state DNA. All right. So there is an eventual process with humans that is scheduled to happen eventually over time, right? And I would say that it's starting to happen now. The not time lapse. Uh, let me think what the word is. It's not time lapsed. Well, I can't think of quite the word, but scheduled. I think that might be the best way to look at it. That from what I gather, a hybrid human, the original DNA was shut off so that humans were functionable. Um, but then in time, given time, if they survived, right, that's part of the thing of it as well. There's cyclical functions that work, in the bigger scheme of things. So assuming that humans weren't all killed off, eventually their DNA would restitch back together. Uh, and so that's, from my understanding, that's what ascension is, that there's a natural process that is happening. The process is starting at this point in the process. Um, just as a basic thumbnail of a definition. Okay. Yet, okay, technically speaking, from the technical to technician's view here, uh, before any ascension, quote unquote, ascension can take place, human race has an unspeakable amount of clearing and cleaning that needs to be completed. Ascension, and this is clearing and cleaning of the lower dimensions and lower densities. Ascension is not possible without societal mass cleaning of all the lowest densities which have been hidden. Hidden in caves, deep tunnels under the ground, hidden in big machines that have been buried in the ground, and oh, the list goes on of things that have been buried. Sins and crimes and poisons and toxins that have been buried into the planet. That which has been kept in the dark and allowed to fester needs to come out of the light before any ascension is going to be happening. This channel is not one for the discussion of the ascension in general, except to say I can't speak your language. If this is your belief that we are all going to, from what I gather, it's sort of summarized. If you believe we're all magically going to ascend without any concern for the cleaning or clearing that needs to happen, how bad is in some places, that we don't need to worry about it or be concerned about it or feel anything for these truly awful prisons. If that's your belief, they were just going to magically, skip off into La La Land where unicorns and rainbows. If that's your personal belief, do not expect it to be supported here. An actual factual evidence. Schumann resonances are not Earth's heartbeat. If you hold this belief, it's your belief, not an established fact. It is not supported here. This misperception is not supported by facts. As such, it is not supported in research and discussion. Earth's vibration is not 7.8 hertz. Earth's resonance is not 7.8 hertz. Schumann resonances are not Earth's heartbeat. Telluric currents, which include the Birkeland currents, carry Earth's geoelectric circuit within the planet. All right. Earth keeps her heartbeat in her chest. Telluric currents are not Schumann resonances. VLF amplitude spikes during seismic activity are not Schumann resonances. Schumann resonances are caused primarily by lightning discharges, which radiate out into the atmosphere, converting amplitude, which are electrics, into quality, which is magnetics. Okay, and quality is the cohesive wave of magnetic flux which bounces between the ionosphere and the Earth's surface. These are subtle energies of pico-electron volts and picotesla. Earth's natural EMF field is measured in nanoteslas, which are 1,000 times stronger than the Schumann resonances. It's best to think of the Schumann resonances as the breathing function of the planet if a biological assignment to a function is necessary. Earth's internal circuit is considered the lower DC circuit. Earth moves her power internally as a circuit. Her power does not leach out or vibrate out into the atmosphere as people think it does. Right? All right. I've made this point before in posts that Earth's natural telluric currents are nanoteslas, nanoelectron volts, but it's nanoteslas. This is all, current is the nanoteslas. All right, the interplanetary magnetic field is measured in nanoteslas. Earth's telluric power grid, all of that is nanoteslas. Schumann resonances themselves are humming or a ringing of like 1,000 times weaker. Those are the pico. Like it's just a hum, just a vague hum that is not even felt or realized underneath the strength of all the other electromagnetics around you, around us, around you. Okay. So one of the understandings in this is that the bigger source of whatever these ascension symptoms are is caused by the electromagnetics that are stronger around you. That is the first thing that needs to be checked is the strength of the things around you. Okay? First and foremost, Earth's natural telluric grid is of a certain strength and a certain magnitude that either we can tap into or we can resist. All right? So there's the exchange of different forms of power, different forms of energy, different geographies, different geometries of this stuff. Not geographies, different geometries of this stuff that affect you various ways. But first and foremost is the electromagnetics that are ungrounded and unshielded around you that radiate out into you as a person that you suck in first and foremost before the Schumann resonances. So it's important to know that. The just like your heart, okay, the Schumann resonances are stronger, or the Earth's electromagnetic grid is stronger than the Schumann resonances. All right. Your heartbeat has a certain electrical strength to it, right? The nervous, your central nervous system, which is in your body, okay? And so your nervous system, your nervousness system, your central nervous system conducts electricity through your nerves, through your body, from your head, through your body, back up to your head. It circulates that way. Your heart and blood vessels radiate out a certain field of strength that is a percentage of the internal power going through your nervous system. So your heart generates a certain power or a certain field to it, electromagnetic field to it, that radiates out from you, that is much more subtle than the power of the electrical circuit that's powering the heart itself. So this is one of the things that's really important to know, the difference between the Schumann resonance that you give the analogy of the biology of the planet when we're talking about the heartbeat function, and what I say is the difference between the heartbeat and the respiration of the telluric versus the Schumann resonances. The telluric power you might look at as the Earth's heartbeat externalized in that fashion, right? So the telluric grid, the Birkelands are part of that, are stronger than the Schumann resonances themselves. All right. So this is where it all kind of fits in, that you have to realize that yeah, if you give the heartbeat analogy, the heartbeat that's in your chest, the power of the spark in your pacemaker that keeps your heart going is much more powerful than the which stays in your current, in your your system. But then you exude out an electromagnetic field as well that is subtle. It's more subtle. It's much more subtle than your internal nervous grid power, and internal to it, the heart, the strength of your heartbeat itself. It's the same thing with the Earth, that the Earth's power grid is stronger than the breathing of the Schumann resonances. The telluric currents are not the Schumann resonances, as we just discussed. Telluric currents do not convey the Schumann resonances, which are best thought in the capacity of a ringing bell. We use the analogy of a ringing bell because this is the illustration that Professor Schumann himself offered as the explanation of how the Schumann resonances work. Okay, so let me go into the bell analogy. The actual bell itself is hung from a yoke, okay, which is like a big chunk of wood or metal. Okay, so the bell is hung from that. So it's kind of a frame, and the bell is hung from that, which is firmly attached to the bell tower. The yoke is, or the headstock they call it, is firmly attached to the bell tower itself, the building. Okay, the bell swings freely from the yoke, and a clapper is attached to the top in the middle of the bell. It's attached on the ceiling of the bell. Okay, and the clapper, well, they usually, what they do is they move the bell, and the clapper kind of stays in one piece. So the big hammer that's in the middle, it's a ball, will kind of stay in one place until the bell kind of is swung into it, and then it all kind of moves together. But the bell, they move. They have the rope is attached to the bell, and then the bell moves and it hits the hammer and creates a sound and a resonance. All right. So the clapper hits the bell itself, which vibrates. The vibration essentially fills the bell with music, with sound. It vibrates. It kind of all congeals into tones, resonant harmonic tones. The yoke, which is stable and attached to the bell tower, you could see is the planet. It's not moving anywhere. The clapper are the strikes of the hammer are spikes of amplitude. Okay, the bell itself, because it's moving, might be seen as the telluric currents. Okay, might be. The actual tones of the bell, the harmonics, would be the Schumann resonances ringing within the bell. The vibrating bell itself might be the telluric currents, yet the harmonics that are produced within the cavity of the vibrating itself the vibrating bell itself are the Schumann resonances. Okay. The vibrating bell must push an air column to produce sound. Okay. Which is a mechanical um, uh, an acoustic wave is a mechanical wave. Okay. Schumann resonances are not sound, which is Schumann resonances are radio waves. They're electromagnetic. It's not sound. It's not a pressure wave or a mechanical function. Schumann resonances are radio waves that can move through a vacuum. Electronically, the process is similar to this. In creating a harmonic, a vibrating body radiates into the immediate environment, creating standing waves. Standing waves are fundamental waves that collide into each other, creating resonances, which are oscillations closer to humming. Okay? Standing waves oscillate in place. Best way to look at this is that the waves or frequencies are not properly rolling. They're not properly running. They're running in place, like running on a treadmill. The Schumann resonance atmospheric harmonics are running in place. They're vibrating in place. They're not rolling. They've collided and they're now vibrating in place. All right. All right. So let's take a pause. I'm going to take a drink of some coffee. So, I'm at an hour. It was not my 10-minute read is now at 1 hour, 6 minutes, and I haven't even gotten halfway through it. Okay, we're back. All right. Take a breath. Due to common misperception of what energies and frequencies we're specifically talking about, there's such a huge misalignment of the basics of Schumann series atmospheric electromagnetics. There has indeed been, if you haven't noticed, there is an active program to confuse and confound the actual science and research of this subject, up to and including horribly maligning the observatory in Russia that faithfully is giving you these results for free. Believe whatever you want, but please don't try to pass the belief as factual nor as science. I work to keep my own personal beliefs clear of the discussion, although I do need to bring it up because this is where we're at. What is your belief in this? Yeah, I believe in science, and I tell you what science is, and I also have a belief in some weird, funky stuff as well that's not provable to you. People in my life know miracles, stuff I've done through my beliefs, but they're not them. It's not about this, like let me explain to you how the Schumann resonances technically work if you want to hear it, okay? Keeping beliefs out of it. And falsified data at Tomsk is a belief. It's a malevolent, insidious belief. Okay? Just want to say that. Yet, as I fully acknowledge, we all have a belief, right? I'm working through this, trying to keep my own belief out of this. All right, we're motivated by beliefs, and yet there it is, you know. Me and my non-ascension talk again. How non-ascension based I am. Ooh, well, you're using that word anyway. Since much of uh, since much of what is being called ascension based is simply a dog and pony show, it's better to keep clear of the discussions on the actual science and the accepted engineering of the Schumann resonances. Okay. I work to keep my personal belief and my ontology clear of the discussions in the in the Facebook group and in the YouTube channels. Although it's been slowly creeping in, such as the case here, as it's getting closer time for this all to, the curtain to finally be pulled, and just all of this stuff to be seen for what it is. Like, I'm just caring less. I don't know how better to put it than that. I don't have a good way to put these things sometimes. But I think you understand the point that I'm making. There are there are those who have, talk with, our guides and have an understanding of what's going on. And then there's the people who are just, they're not going to be coming to, they're not going to be coming to or coming awake, in this lifetime until the very end when all of it's kind of coming crashing down. Um, and I hate being a fearmonger, but I, it's time. It's just time. It's time. Like that's why I came here. That's why I incarnated here for this time here. And again, belief. You don't have to. I keep the inevitability of this crumbling out of what I'm saying and give hope. Uh, and try and, give you the cheery version of this if I can. And, uh, so because that's important for you not to, you just to keep focused on what's good and what's positive. Let's say that. Uh, I lately I've been kind of, my guides have said it's time, either for me personally getting close to that time, uh, where it's just that time, or the greater scheme of things where, like there's enough of a kind of critical mass in people who have associated this ascension thing with the Schumann resonances that this needs to be talked about just in general for this. So regardless of whatever kind of level, I'm looking at it, like this just something that needs to be talked about, that it's like this almost mainstream narrative now that the Schumann resonances coincide with the Earth's vibration. It's really comfortable, easy version of this for people to understand. This seemingly intuitive felt version of, oh, this is the Schumann resonances, that it's attached to the Earth's vibration. Earth's resonance is, Earth's heartbeat is 7.8. It's all of this kind of uh, storybook version that came up. I don't know where, when, but recently. Um, that rising resonances are coinciding with Earth's rising resonances. Um, yeah, they're Earth's kind of vibes are changing. Yes, definitely. But we've talked about Earth's inherent native vibration. There's too much water. You can't. It doesn't. Earth doesn't have an inherent vibration like that because the water's sloshing. You can't measure it. I'll just say that it hasn't been measured. Uh, but the radio waves that vibrate in the atmosphere, that's a whole different thing altogether. Yeah. That's what the Schumann resonances are, the radio waves in the atmosphere. Uh, Once we are presented with the Disney side of the narrative, then once I've been kind of presented with the Disney side of things and the false narrative, then I have to kind of a lot of times go into what, like, let me give you the alternate version of what ascension is. Let me give you the alternate version of this and the beliefs. Like we can keep the belief out of it, but how tangled it is your belief in what the Schumann is, that knowing the proper facts, the proper engineering of knowing the proper how to get the Schumann resonances properly, if that threatens your belief in some way, technically knowing how the Schumann resonances works, if that's threatening your belief in some way, then there's a problem. And we can't keep now at this point the belief out of it as much as I might, right? Because I'm telling you from the onset, we can keep the beliefs out of this. However, if your belief is that embroiled into a false narrative of the Schumann resonances that you're now kind of a weed, kind of embroiled your preconceived notion of the Schumann resonances on the false narrative, that we can't clear out the weeds and you're stuck with almost a dead plant of what is still good in there, then there's a significant problem. Um, so that's why doing this now, I've been talking about this for a while from the beginning, about the insidiousness of the ascension side version of this and why it's to be avoided, right? Belief is yours. So it either resonates with you or don't, okay? But the false narrative that is attached to the ascension side, because it's not, like I said, rooted in the technical aspects of how they get the Schumann resonances. Okay. Uh, Factually, technically speaking, the ascension, the narrative you're given is a red herring or a ruse. It's a manufactured cover story for the real reality. And I'll keep my beliefs clear so your beliefs don't feel threatened if you're coming here for such. Okay. So that's sort of how I'm, presenting the, the kind of the offset to this ascension-based narrative of saying the ascension narrative that you're given is a red herring. It's a ruse. You're not familiar with the red herring. It is what they would criminals back in the day. They had hound dogs chasing the criminals, and they would take a red herring and draw it over the scent of their scent to throw off the hounds that are chasing it. So that's generally speaking, it's now I would say it's a literary technique, I guess. But a red herring is a commonly known literary phrase, I guess. But a ruse, uh, something for you much easier for you to understand, much easier for you to wrap your head around. You don't have to do any thinking. You don't have to know anything behind any of the math or the science. You can just look at a pretty picture, and that tells you everything you need to know. Uh, so that is one of the reasons why we are here, not with the one of the reasons why this is not supporting the ascension narrative, because there's nowhere that you can really insert the facts into it, I think. Or at least not really where I can see. They have this kind of already kind of prefabbed tale about what you're looking at on the spectrogram without any facts behind it, right? What I've seen from what I've seen. Recently, within the discussion of the Schumann resonances, has been the inundation of fairy tales in place of actual science to explain what are the Schumann resonances. Within much of the discussion of the Schumann resonances is an incursion of the misappropriation, oh, that's a mouthful, of actual science. We reveal, all right, take a break, okay? I think that's a good point to take a break for you, take a break for me, before I start reading. Okay, we review the real reality of what are the Schumann resonances in addition to what these are not. Both get addressed here, equally kind of more or less the same, for one reason or another, fairly competently and efficiently. It is preferable to stick with the actual factual objective reality for a competent discussion. So even though I'm not attaching the Schumann resonances to your ascension, okay, I'm doing you a service, hopefully, doing a public service at large, doing you personally, the 10 of you that I care about, the terrific 10, for you personally, that, this is not, the ascension is not Schumann resonances, because you got enough practical work to do anyway. If you do believe in the ascension, you have enough practical work to do anyway, grounding, that it doesn't matter what it's doing externally, right? So the Schumann resonances don't matter to your ascension in the first place, from the technical aspect. From the non-technical aspect of you, the Disney side, do your clearing anyway. It doesn't matter what they're doing. You still have to do your clearing anyway. That's what you got to learn, right? However, when we talk about the ascension, not based on the Schumann resonances and just the version of that, and I try and explain to people from my perspective what it really is, then we're talking about something totally different, because your ascension is not, of what it really is the eventual stitching together of your DNA, which is going to be, well, you do your clearing. So, in the actual real life ascension of what it is, what you're getting anyway, if you want to speed that up, you got to clear out all your lower ballast anyway. So, check, check, checkmate. It doesn't matter, right? I mean, I'm not getting paid for this. If you go away and say, "Wow, you're right. Hey, I got to do my clearing. Thanks," and I shut the channel down, that's all you ever need to know out of all of this. You got to do your clearing. And technically speaking, they're not related. Ascension is not related to the Schumann resonances, but technically speaking, as you a component in the electrical system of the geomagnetic grid of the Earth, you still have to do your grounding anyway. So, whether on a strictly purely technical aspect without the ascension thing, with on the ascension thing, or on the ascension thing, the Disney version, or on the ascension thing for really real, either way, it doesn't matter. All of it equals out exactly the same result across the board in all of it. Check your local interferences, check your local toxins, reduce your local toxins, and ground yourself, right? If you can do it in the ocean, that's great. If the ocean is toxic, or the water is toxic around you, move. Because that just means that's all the more toxins in the atmosphere. And you need to remember the UV rays, UVC rays, these highly, kind of dangerous, more dangerous, or UV, ultraviolets. These are what are breaking up the poison, the advanced toxins of the planet that humans don't know how to deal with. You need to remember that. You yourself may need to be shielded by, I don't know, aloe, maybe a gauze material like the Arabs have over there in the country. The Arab countries, it's a gauze material. I don't know. I can't answer that. There are other people that'll answer that better. But what I'm suggesting to you is that the technically speaking, these UVs that are coming in and all the gamma stuff may not be showing up on the Schumann resonances, but they are busy at work destroying the toxins around you, the epoxies holding everything together, the building constructive adhesive holding everything together, the mastic, the laminate material, the colorful stuff that in a couple years is just devoid of color after time. Yeah, all of that. The UV stuff is beating away at all of this poisons and toxins around us, and that's what is happening. So, you a lot of these weird ass, complaints that people get are from the toxins being released into the atmosphere around you from the building material that's crumbling. You can't kind of discount the two of them, of everything falling down, and wow, I'm getting weird headaches and a weird throat thing and multiple syndromes of all these weird you know uh, maladies that people have. Check your local toxins first. Check your local atmospheric level of toxins that is not electromagnetic in nature, in addition to your electromagnetics that are poisoning you as well. Okay. So, that said, I'm well versed in metaphysics. Plug this guy in. Oh, please, system processing. Please wait. Okay. All right. I'm well versed in metaphysics and the occult, in the end of the world scenarios, multiple end of the world scenarios, catastrophism, uniformitarianism, even comparative religions, comparative metaphysics, comparative end of the world scenarios. In addition to my job before I came into Earth incarnation, which was an etheric technician. I've described that before. I'm also a grid worker here. I work remotely with entities, etheric and astral fields. So, given the opportunity, I do dream work, dream walking, fascinating stuff. The side work comes with the territory, allows me the ability for discernment in the esoteric arts. So, because I can, channel up there in higher dimensions and stuff, I can see through a lot of the stuff that people, like, oh, they're fascinating, whatever. Like, oh, well, let me just give you some feedback on that. Uh, Most of it's crap. We are here to learn properly what are the Schumann resonances and how these are measured by the graphs. Uh, we discuss the extraterrestrial events such as solar flares, gamma, X-ray bursts, planetary spherical objects near the sun, Planet X, Nibiru, Wormwood, etc., whatever theory you might want to examine. Okay, so which is not really Schumann resonances, but if you think it's Planet X or Nibiru that's causing something on the Schumann resonances or CERN, like, oh, well, I'll tell you how you'd know if it was one of them. Huge planet 10 times the size of Earth. If that was nearby causing something on the Schumann resonances, you would also be seeing a bunch of other stuff as well. It's probably not that magic Planet X. Yeah, Yet, before these fantastic causes of, say, wormwood coming, you need to check with your local interferences. Just simply. Look locally to interferences around the antenna itself, you being the antenna I'm talking about, assuming it's a gamma ray burst from the sun. And don't assume. Right? So we do not talk about ascension energies here as it's meaningless. I don't know what that means. Nor is there a standard meaning of 5D ascension energies. If any of these buzzwords, which just mentioned that and other ones, are linked into your belief system, this group may be a rough experience for you. Okay, there is an inherent unlearning which must take place first. You are invited of your own free will from previous word associate to free yourself from previous word associations first, if you are able. This is through choice and free will. Without your permission to give you the unvarnished facts, you will not be able to receive what is here for you. So you need to give me permission. You need to, be willing to unlearn what you've already kind of heard before you can learn something new. You got to clear out the old and the damaged before you can make room for the new. That's a principle, whether it's in what you've learned. I don't know how you unlearn something, but you challenge it. Is that really true? You don't have to hold on to it as being true. You say, well, is it true? How do I know that? Right? That's where it starts. All right. So, in my experience here, there are no gamma bursts nor X-ray bursts which show up on the Schumann resonance monitoring graphs. Radio antennae are not built to detect this range, and most of this is absorbed by the ionosphere. Radio antennae are designed to detect a certain range of signals from within the atmosphere. Outside of this range, the information becomes noise which gets filtered out. So in the case of Schumann resonances, anything that's over Tomsk, anything that's over 40 hertz gets filtered out as noise. Schumann resonances are the lowest of the low frequency radio waves, operating up to 46 hertz. Much of the incoming solar radiation that is believed to show up as amplitude bursts are not incoming solar, as people want to believe. As I've mentioned before, the ionosphere catches a lot of the stuff that people claim is incoming solar. Okay? Instead, these are simply lightning signatures bouncing against a tight ionosphere. Okay? You got to remember the primary source of Schumann resonances. When you see a burst there, your primary thought or consideration would be that it's lightning. The Schumann resonances are bounced against the ionosphere. The sun hits the ionosphere, it gets really charged up, okay? And then that charge does get released into the atmosphere, but it comes kind of forcing itself down. That's the process that we have observed. So the sun is essentially what tightens up the ionosphere, and that's what causes the Schumann resonances. Schumann resonances are atmospheric EMF that operate within the ionosphere and the Earth's surface. Much of the extraterrestrial bombardment we get is suspended by the ionosphere and absorbed into the plasma that engulfs the globe. Okay, so it's absorbed into the plasma, which engulfs the planet. So the ionosphere is basically, it's a plasma kind of membrane, if you will. In the process, solar bombardment comes to us forcing down of the upper atmosphere, which is compressed around us. This electromagnetic forcing of electrons into the lower atmosphere. The discussion of the physical effects of solar flares and CMEs, coronal mass ejections, is one that has traction. There are effects to the central nervous system, heart rate, blood pressure, other biological functions. Let's take a pause here. Okay. I'm rambling through all this stuff. Okay. Need to take a break. Go to the bathroom. Good place to pause this. Okay. All right. Much of the body's functions are regulated by electromagnetic or electronic impulses, either nerves or the nervous functions. And I talked about that. The heart rate, I'm gonna have to get specifics on this, but the power inherent in the pacemaker, the thing that is what fires off the heart muscle. I'll have to get actual physical data, what they measure it to be. All right, so I can get you actual factual data on this. But the heartbeat function, the electric function of the heart itself, is a higher magnetic charge, higher electric charge than the magnetic side current rather. The electric, that flash, is charge, and the radiation giving out from the heart is current. Charge and current are two different things. Charge is the electric side, the plus and minus polarity, and current is direction, and south, east, and west. Okay, so visually, when you picture charge, you think of negative on the bottom, positive on the top. So the charge moves up and down like that. Current moves out laterally from you this way. Okay, so the current a lot of times is proportionately it's weaker, but it is proportionately related to, in your body, it's proportionally related to the charge, right? So the current is weaker than charge, but they're proportionally related. So yeah, you have a charge that goes, from your brain down to your feet and then back up again. It's powered by the heart. So the heartbeat, the current of the heartbeat signature that you get electromagnetically is not as strong as what you have inside of you, the current you have inside of you. That's the difference between the Earth's telluric currents, the power of the Earth's telluric currents, and the power of the Schumann resonance harmonics. A lot of people don't realize this. They say, "Oh, well, yeah, it's got energy and electricity and power." It's like, no, man, they're two. If you want to use the heartbeat analogy, that's fine. Let me work with that. If you're willing to, listen to this, if you have the patience and the grace to hear what I have to say, then this is what the two are, the difference between the two circuits, and how, the Earth's heartbeat relates to your heartbeat, yeah, but then also it's not just a one-sided dealio here, where it's only, where you can conveniently prove your point and then forget all the rest of it. That ain't how science works, buddy. That's how the religion of Schumannism works, right? But that's not how the science of this works. So if you really want to delve into this, this is the difference between those two circuits relative to you and your body, your physiological functions. All right. A detailed discussion of the effects of solar radiance is one that's involved for this introduction. All right. So they have Suspicious Observers has a great video on the effects of solar weather and CMEs and all that stuff. He does a great video. I put it on Facebook, and I can't redo his. I put a link to it on Facebook. I can't redo his video on YouTube, but I'm pretty sure I had made a link in my community page to that. So the effects of solar storm, solar CME is well enough studied that he did a video, and he Mr. Atheist himself, is willing to admit that the electrical storm has an effect on the human body and the human physiology. Right. So it is important to understand that solar advanced solar weather has an effect on the human body. Okay. Solar. All right. But here's a matter we get into again. There's a difference between the matter of belief, which is internal guidance, and then the factual objective validation that is externally verifiable, the science of it. All right. So when we talk about the effects not of solar storms, okay, but of normal Schumann resonance behavior, when we talk about that, people frequently want to discuss the ringing sensation, the vertigo sensation, the nausea, the headaches in between there, as a condition of the Schumann resonances, and not necessarily of the solar storms. Solar radiance does have, solar storms do have a physiological effect on us, on a person. Schumann resonances may or may not have an effect on a person's physiology as well. They affect people more than other people's. Okay. High solar weather weather warning days. This is what we're talking about. In those cases where they give you a solar storm warning day, that those can have an effect on your physiology, and yet you have to remember the strength of that is in the nanotesla range. Schumann resonances are in the pico. Okay, so the solar storm warnings, these are the nanotesla range of the solar forcing coming down. That's the difference between the Schumann resonances and the solar forcing days, the solar weather days, is that the top is coming down. So the higher voltage is just kind of coming down, squishing us, in a manner of speaking. The radio waves are pressing down. And that's what you feel. It's compressing. Those electrons are squishing down on you, and you're feeling that various ways. Okay, so that's the one side. There's one part of that. Yet, okay, there seems to be a sudden onslaught of symptoms, quote unquote symptoms. It's oh so common to hear folks chattering on about their symptoms in the comments I'm talking about. Not necessarily in real life, going to the coffee shop, but in the comments with here online. Yet symptoms of what? Symptoms of the Schumann rising, okay? Or is it symptoms of solar radiance? All right. Effects from solar radiance, all right, effects from a storm weather warning, right? So effects from a solar storm, effects from a solar storm are not symptoms. Okay. These are simply this is the effect from the cause of the solar weather. Okay? These so-called symptoms are, at this point, they're fairly ubiquitously believed to be ascension symptoms, which are caused by the rising resonances, the presumed rising resonances. This is the unsupported theory of the malleability of atmospheric resonance harmonics. Yet, the Schumann resonances are not rising. Please do not confuse amplitude bumps with rising resonances. There's a lot of absurdity attached to the belief. Okay, hold on. Let's take a pause. Probably a good place for me to get a coffee. All right, let's pause. Okay, we're coming close to the end. Hopefully, this will be under 2 hours. The epic length of this. This is definitely a live stream length production. Thank you all for being here. If you managed to stay here all this time, I appreciate it. Thank you for being here. You know, the 10 of you. There's 10 of you I know that are at least still watching this. Um, all right. So there's a lot of absurdity attached to the belief in the rising resonances. I've talked about this. I will apparently need to keep continuing to talk about this because there is a false narrative that's attached to it. If it was a Disney movie or something, you could be fine with it. Well, it's just a movie, right? It's whatever, believe what you want. But to have it presented, this whole thing, it presented as scientific fact, that's another thing altogether. It's like, well, it's not a scientific fact. It's not supported by that. It's not supported by science. Uh, when you talk about a scientific fact, what is your definition of a scientific fact? Okay. Um, so there's a lot of, false narrative that's attached to the theory of the rising resonances. And it's a theory. It's not a fact. It's a theory, right? I'll be considerate and call it just a theory of the rising resonances. All right. So there's this expression that is also kind of this mythological thing called the dome of the firmament. Not everyone has heard of that, but I think a good number of people who follow either Wages or Scott at Planet X or a number of the YouTube channels have heard of this phrase, the dome of the firmament. Okay, so the dome of the firmament of human thinking goes into negative feedback loop, and then everything but the real reality comes back as a result. So humans have the ability, it's dome like a veil, to have facts altered by the belief, like choose to not see things that are in front of you or that person. Okay, so I would, for any better word or any better phrase, I would consider that the dome of the firmament. Um, so humans have this ability to kind of keep in what they want or to kind of keep out what they want, to not take in new facts based on the belief. It's all wonderful parts of the human thinking. Okay. Uh, these are what I am observing. Once the cozy notion of the rising resonances causing the aches, pains, discomforts to seep into the group vernacular, the image is then fixed into the dome of the firmament of the human head. Thereafter, reality is powered by belief, coupled with convenient cherry-picked data, which usually happens. You're selectively picking, which we call scientific facts, which you see what you want to see. Thusly is born a religion. Okay? Your belief in it is powering it more than the actual data and the facts. That's fine, just accept it for what it is. In this example, we might call this religion Schumannism, for lack of a more fitting identification. It really truly does not take much for the average human to derail him or herself from the pathway misappropriate the details into a convenient narrative, and cuss out any voices who would speak otherwise. Okay? Therein reside the religion of Schumannism. Okay. Let's take a break. Okay, back. All right, and so this is the last paragraph in this. All right. So, in needing to be addressed is the people who come to watch the videos or the Facebook or whatever, looking to address the physical maladies. As I say, the undiagnosed medical issues that you come here looking to have diagnosed. It's the way I see them. Um, and that's how I feel it's phrased many times. You're looking for medical advice. If the Schumann resonances was causing the ringing or vertigo, there would not have been a sudden, recent increase in the causes of the phantom ringing and the vertigo and all of that. Someone would have noticed it by now if these originally were with the Schumann resonances instead of something else that might be, I don't know, time gated to awaken at this point in humans' evolution before the ending of this catastrophe cycle happens. Believe what you want. However, if these things were caused by the Schumann, there wouldn't, from actually caused by it from the beginning, there would not be a sudden rise in these things happening. Whatever physiological assignment you want to put on the Schumann resonances, it would have been there already. And there would have been all these wide varieties of medical symptoms that would have been studied by now. And they'd have, I'm sure, since the Schumann resonances are not rising, it's unsupported that the Schumann resonances are of themselves associated with the ringing, the vertigo, the nausea, and the headache. Phantom refers to no physical condition. Phantom symptoms have no physical causality. This would also include the Schumann resonances as a possible cause of the symptoms. It's fabulous to discover what are the physiological effects of the geoelectric circuit on the human vessel. It's wonderful you know the earth is alive and has a heartbeat. Your physical body is made of the same stuff of the earth and of the sun. Ultimately, you are the earth, in a sense. Potentially, you could feel the planet, the energy of the planet, and perhaps you do, and that is what? The energy of the planet itself is what is calling out to you that you need to connect with to reduce your physical maladies. Okay? You could potentially feel, or you could choose to be an impediment or impede the energy through the expression of your free will. You can choose to shut off that energy moving through you. It is an observation that my observation, that those who complain the worst about their symptoms are the ones who accumulate and are holding on to a huge variety of energy which should be channeled into the planet and not held on to. That is what we would call grounding. The ones complaining, excuse me, the ones complaining the loudest are those who, generally speaking, have the most work to do in clearing out the lowest densities, starting first with fear. In other words, those who are suffering the most are the ones operating out of fear. This is the technical reality in the physics of phantom symptoms. This channel is not a religious group, nor one of spirituality. This is a technical exploration of the Schumann resonances with the human being as a component of the geoelectric circuit. You, as an autonomous entity, are a component in this circuit. You can choose to hold on to these energies and suffer, or you can learn how to ground out what is not yours to hold on to. Feel the relief of this decision. Either way, the choice is yours. There is nothing automatic for humans. The universe is conscious, and it responds to the conscious directed energies that you put into your pathway. Okay, so that duly ends at almost 2 hours into this. This 10-minute read. Again, I started out with a 10-minute, 26-second introduction and a non-introduction video. Oh my god, I talk too much. Anyway, all right. So, that ends that. I've said everything on this that I need to say right now. And I just want to say thank you for being here. I appreciate this. You love your support. Share the video. If you can, send me some money on PayPal or whatever. That's great. Let me know you've gotten something out of it. But generally speaking, this is free information, and I'm posting this for the time that I'm still here. However much longer I have to be here, I'm posting these. So, while I'm still kicking along, I got to do these. I got to present the technical version of what isn't the rhetoric, the absurd rhetoric. Thank you all for coming here. This has been a rather long video. I appreciate everyone for being here. Hopefully I'm going to do an interview with Wages soon, but I leave that up to the universe. But there's other people who've talked to me about having an interview, and eventually, that's what I'm going to be doing with a lot of people is have a one-to, even if it's not shown on a YouTube channel, and anyone, just any regular person who wants to get some of my time, I'm going to put it out there for like half an hour clips, an hour, whatever. If you want, particular specific questions that you want answered, I'm happy to answer those for you. So we'll talk about this coming up in the future. Thank you all very much for being here. I appreciate, everyone for your love and support. Thank you all very much. Namaste.